Hello, all, and welcome to the Movie Bears podcast. I'm Brad Harrison. Each week, I'm joined by hairy, huggable, handsome homos who love movies to discuss a little bit of film news and review movies, either current or classic. Guys, lately we've been relying heavily on the current. We need to get back to some classic at some point, I think.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Otherwise, we'll have to change the spiel to review
Current
movies, either
only.
current or current.
Right.
This week we're reviewing whatever it is we watched.
So we'll
With
go back and do like Sunset Boulevard and Gone with the Wind, that kind of classic, right?
Totally.
Ooh,
Why not?
yeah.
That would be awesome.
Let's do it.
I'd love that. With me, of course, as always, you've already heard from them. The estimable Jim Pliofko is here. Jim, welcome.
Hi, thanks guys, and welcome to the podcast, everyone.
And of course, the dapper Will Lindis is here as well. Welcome, Will.
Yeah, I'm not here with my friends. I'm here with my family.
Wow.
I
Just had to get on Meathead for today's review.
don't have friends. I got family.
Yeah.
As you have no doubt surmised by our terrible Vin Diesel impressions. Although, Jim, yours is pretty good, actually.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
We are reviewing the new entry in the Fast and Furious franchise. It's not Fast and Furious 7, right? It's just Furious 7.
Furious 7. They're not fast anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
It's because they're all driving golf carts now, trying to get away from Paul Blart, Mall Cop.
To be
but,
fair, I empathize.
Anyway, we will be discussing, of course, Furious 7. We'll also be sharing a little bit of movie news. It's been a while since we've done that with all these freaking double features and special South by Southwest discussions we've been having, so it'll be good to get back to that, as well as sharing our weekly plugs. Awesome stuff there, so be sure to stay tuned for that. Guys, I had a rough day at work today, so I'm going to share with you my very girly cheerleader drink with my super cool sippy straw.
Hey, whatever floats your gay boat and heals your gay soul. That's what you be doing.
Oh yeah, that's so good.
What are you drinking there?
It is pineapple mango vodka. It is Smirnoff blueberry vodka. It is orange juice. It is a little bit of Sprite, and it is a little bit of Malibu. I don't know what it's called, but it's really good.
By the way, we get no monetary kickback from Smirnoff, Malibu, or Pepsi Cola.
I wish
Although,
we did.
if you want to sponsor the Movie Bears podcast,
We will gladly take your money.
feel free to send an email to your executive producer, Brad at moviebearspodcast.com, and we'll arrange something.
I'll drink a shitload of Smirnoffs every show if they want to sponsor us.
I will too.
Indeed. Pay our way to South by Southwest next year, and I will drink your stuff solidly. But hey, we have crap to discuss. You guys ready to do kind of get the show on the road, so to speak?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, definitely on the road.
All right. You like that? You caught
little-
that? That was my little Furious 7. But all right. Well, let's kick things off first with a little bit of movie news. I'm totally playing the sound clip in my head, Jim, so you should have like the exact amount of gappage in there to go back and like insert it in post.
Yeah, it's not that much really. I like to leave a little more than we need.
Mm.
It's always good to get a little more than you need sometimes.
Oh yeah.
More than a handful. Anyway, so I will kick movie news off this week. I am very, very excited about April 16th. Do any of you know why I might be excited for April 16th?
It's the middle of April, and you like middle days?
No.
No.
I got nothing.
Star Wars Celebration, in Anaheim, California, is kicking off on April 16th. And J.J. Abrams is going to be on hand to premiere the new Star Wars The Force Awakens trailer at Star Wars Celebration. And you can probably bet that trailer is going to be online in some form on the 16th, I'm thinking. It will, of course, be attached to the Avengers 2 Age of Ultron. So if you want to see it in the big screen, of course, you can wait. But if you're a Star Wars fan and it's online, aren't you really fucking gonna wait? Probably not. I'm not. The new teaser poster will also be premiering there and should be available for purchase online. I don't know if I'm going to buy it because I haven't seen it yet, but I can't wait to see what we're going to get in the poster. Some of the posters for the prequel trilogy were actually kind of really cool. I don't know if you guys remember the one for Episode 1, Phantom Menace, but it was like little Anakin with like the Darth Vader shadow against like the Tatooine building. It was pretty neat.
Oh yeah.
Now it's going to be little Mickey with the Darth Vader shadow. Don't we already have that? I
think we already.
I'm sure that exists.
Yeah.
I'm sure that it does. Yeah. I wish that I was going to be at Star Wars Celebration, but you know what? That's okay. I'm not.
So what is it? Is it like a con? Is it?
Yeah. It's like a big Star Wars like love fest orgy of Wookiee Ewok fun bag, awesomeness. Taking place in Anaheim. Yeah, I know.
Wait, there's a Star Wars orgy?
Lots of Leias and slave outfits.
Leias and Jabbas as far as the eye can see.
So
I'll just take off my clothes and like lay on a slab and be like, whoa.
While a bad music video plays in front of you.
And then we can get like a little chaser to like sit on the edge and go. Nyeh.
So. Brad, you're bringing back bad flashbacks for me. We just watched The Return of the Jedi, like this last weekend, right?
We did, and unfortunately, I mean, it was the Blu-ray. It was the Blu-ray set that came out like a year and a half ago.
Okay.
So it's like half special edition, half like new shit. It's the one where they went back and George Lucas made the Ewoks blink. I don't know if you remember that, blinking Ewoks.
That's the least of the sins of this movie.
Yeah, but Jim, I think you're alluding to that god awful like CGI like number they added at the beginning of Return of the Jedi, right?
Yeah, they're in Jabba's lair or whatever, and his servants and shit are running around, and then all of a sudden, like this crazy dancing creature music video thing happens before the was it the Wampa?
The
Rancor, whatever the heck it is, scene. Happens, and yeah, it was kind of crazy. And then you also mentioned the Ewoks blinking, and that is a minor compared to just the Ewoks themselves. I think there's way too much Ewok in this movie.
Okay, but
sorry for you guys that really love the Ewoks.
Chihuahua.
They're cute, but man, I don't know how you can. There's a lot of hate out there for the Gungans and what's his name, Jar Jar, but. I can't stomach the Ewoks very much.
There are a lot of Ewoks in that film, and to the point where I would say that it is for me at least, the lesser of the original trilogy.
Well, I kind of have to agree with you. I think the film's definitely, yeah. I mean, it's such a steady decline throughout the whole series when you think about it.
Empire is the best.
Decline? Shut your mouth.
No. You think Empire's the best. I'm of a slightly different generation. I have a soft spot for A New Hope. Before it was called, I don't know if it was even called A New Hope at the beginning. It was just Star Wars.
Yes. You schooled us 4 months ago on this. We remember.
Yes. So, yeah, I have a soft spot for that one. I think it's the best. Technically, I think you got me on Empire. It's a fine movie. I think those two are by far the class of all the movies.
Jim's all like, I like New Hope before you two were even born.
Oh, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that. It's just that I'm partial to it. Just like I'm partial to the original Alien versus Aliens. You know what I mean? I think it's the same thing.
Well, Jim, look at it this way. That god-awful number in Return of the Jedi, at least your reward was the hot, hairy, chubby dude who, like, takes care of the Rancor.
Yeah, that was cool. He was definitely some good eye candy.
Nice little reward there. Not so much post-Ewok scene. You got like a burned-headed Darth Vader instead. But you know what? Hey. Right. Anyway, Star Wars Celebration.
Spoilers
back on topic. Star Wars Celebration, new trailer, new poster, April 16th. Keep your eyes out. I'm sure we'll be posting links if stuff comes online. Jim, what is your movie news bit this week?
Well, we're kind of doing a vehicular mayhem show for our movie this week with Furious 7. So my movie news is a little bit of news that's come out of the highly anticipated Mad Max Fury Road movie that's coming out this summer. Actually, when is that coming out? Just a few weeks, maybe. I'm not sure.
It's around the corner.
Yeah, it's May 15th. It's it's coming out in just a few weeks, 6 weeks or so. Anyway, the news around that is that, as some of you may know, Tom Hardy, one of the actors who I really admire, who's working today, one of the best actors I think, who's going to be playing Mad Max, has actually signed for 3 more Mad Max movies besides Fury Road. So these guys are kind of banking on the future of that franchise without even having released a movie yet. And I guess that's not unusual. I mean, you have the Marvel franchise locking in some of their marquee actors for several movies, banking on the fact that everything's going to remain successful. But I mean, these guys, like I said, it's been I don't know how many years since the last Mad Max movie. Certainly by the trailers, from what I've seen, this movie looks really over the top and crazy. And as good as it might look to me, I don't know how general audiences are going to take to this movie. It's got no
wheels.
It's got no wheels at this point. It's got nothing. I mean, it's sitting at the starting line, revving up the engine. If it gets an audience, it could go. If not, I mean, it could be a long road for to make 4 movies and make them successful out of this. But Tom Hardy's a good actor. It's one of those things for me. Like, I don't really like seeing actors that I like locked into characters and roles. I think it tends to kind of pigeonhole them into and stereotype them a little bit more than they would be normally.
One thing this film has going for it is it's got a ridiculous amount of buzz. Like, there are a lot of people that are excited to see this one. Like, this one is going to do well. We can already predict this one's going to do well at the box office just based on the buzz alone. Like, it may end up, like, critically tanking and people end up saying, like, I don't want to see another one of these. But it's going to make its money, at least at the box office, on this first one. Because it is one of the, most hyped movies. It and probably the Avengers right now are the 2 big hyped movies of the year. And I'm kind of with you in some ways on the locking in an actor type thing, but I think with someone who's very prolific like Tom Hardy, this is a guy who can put out more than just the one Mad Max movie every couple of years, because it's going to be like 2 years in between films or whatever. So this is a way for him to stay in the public eye, keep getting money, all those things that we want for, an actor that we want to be successful, and then he can then, free him up to do some of those other things as well. So, I mean, he was still able to put out films like Locke and The Drop coming right on the heels of, being in a Batman movie, being in The Dark Knight Rises.
Right.
So I think that's a situation where you can have it both ways. You can be a blockbuster actor, and you can also turn in quality roles and other roles as long as you're versatile enough to do so. And
I just hope that his schedule for Mad Max allows him to get in those other movies that may be different and can keep him kind of out there as a more versatile and viable actor than just Mad Max action star.
You definitely kind of got to wonder about the inception of the idea of having him in so many of these Mad Max movies. I mean, we'll have to see what the drop off is after the first movie. But I mean, I see what you mean about having him locked into that role. But he's kind of a fucking role. He's kind of a warrior. I mean, I think he's going to do great when it comes to him in these movies. I mean, he's pretty great. I think he's going to surprise you. I think you'll be surprised.
Yeah. No, I Will. I'm with you. I'm just a little bit cautious about the Mad Max movie because while I think film people are really excited about this, I don't know how excited general audiences are. We saw this trailer, the latest trailer for Mad Max Fury Road, in front of Furious 7 in the theater, the Cineplex we were in IMAX, and it was pretty awesome. And I was trying to kind of gauge the reaction of the crowd to the trailer, and I don't know. I wasn't able to really pick up on much.
I know,
from it.
just very
People were
anecdotal.
cheering.
Yeah, I heard a lot of like cheering, clapping, but it was also like that was the target audience. I'll
Right.
say very anecdotally, I mean, because that's all I've got to go off of. A lot of my general film fans, not people that are actual deep cut film fans, the type of people that'll see just kind of the average film at a blockbuster, just kind of typical cross cut. I've been seeing the trailers shared quite a bit. I've been seeing like, Will, you like movies? Are you excited about Fury Road? Like, I've just been hearing and seeing a lot about this movie from just general populace, and to me, that I think because that buzz is probably not unique to just like my circle. I think because it's been kind of broad, and we've been seeing some of this, viral spread to it. I think that's why they were able to say, "Hey, Tom Hardy, you want to do 3 more of these?" I think they're kind of anticipating a regardless of, again, like if the movie comes out and bombs critically, it's going to make its money on opening day, and I think they're already banking on that.
Plus, it's not like they're coming out like one per year Hunger Games style. You know what I mean? There's going to be 2 or 3 years between these movies, so I have a feeling he'll have time to do other stuff in between. But we'll have to see how it goes. I am anxious for the first new movie. I'm excited for Fury Road.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely one where we'll be reviewing on the show, and where we're super excited to see it based on what we saw at South by Southwest too.
Indeed, because we saw like 12 minutes of footage from the movie as a special little gift from the director, George Miller. Yeah. So cannot wait. Well, Will, what is your news bit? What's got you excited this week?
So this is a bit of follow-up from South by Southwest news. At the festival, and shortly thereafter, we talked about a little bit about this movie called The Invitation. This is a movie by director Karen Kusama. It was in the Midnighter section, which are usually kind of the horror films or the thriller films or the darker films, or those types of things. All about this man who goes to this dinner party and starts to become more and more suspicious that his ex-wife and her new husband have made some bad decisions which may impact him and his friends. We'll leave it at that to steer very far away from spoilers. And we all walked away from this film saying, I think all of us, and I could be wrong on this, but I think all of us enjoyed this film for different reasons. Me, just because it's a great little slow burn, and I love a good slow burn, especially one that ramps up to a thematically interesting ending. The reason I bring this film up is it has received its distribution rights. So now one of these movies that we recommended is now one that you'll be able to see fairly soon. Draft House Films, because yay, nabbed the worldwide rights to it, and we'll be releasing this film in 2016. So you will be able to see this when it comes out at that time. And this is worldwide rights, too. This is the first time ever that Draft House Films has secured theatrical rights to anything beyond just North America, which means it's a big snag for the distribution company itself. But yeah, so that means that you'll be able to see it probably in limited release in 2016. Plus, they tend to do day and date release on video on demand, so you'll be able to get it off of Amazon Video on Demand kind of that same week. So 2016 is a ways away, but watch for it, The Invitation, and you should definitely check it out.
Awesome. Wow, that's a long wait.
It's a good pickup for sure. I mean, I'm glad to see one of my favorite movies from South by Southwest get some attention and get some backing and get out there and maybe get seen by some people. This one may be a tough one to market, I think, possibly. Especially the way the movie's set up, but no spoilers here. But I really love the movie. I mean, this was a movie that kind of stuck to its convictions all the way through and had a great payoff, I think, in the movie. So I think that's a great pickup for Draft House to get this out there. It's just a shame we got to wait till 2016 to see it. You got to wonder what goes into the decision making of okay, we picked up this movie and we're going to wait We're going to wait a year to release it because I mean we're still kind of in early 2015.
Right.
So I mean it could be a year or so away or more.
This is a distribution company that focuses almost primarily on genre films, and if they're picking up something now, that means that chances are they already have a full slate through 2015, and they're not going to want to put one genre film up against another, especially on a limited theatrical run, because you're having X number of screens competing with X number of screens for your own film. So I'm sure it had to do less with when they needed to get that individual film out, and more versus the overall slate for 2015, and just kind of not wanting to compete against another Draft House film.
Yeah, that's possible, I suppose. But either way, I mean, we'll be looking forward to seeing this one when it comes out.
Indeed. Well. Should we get to our movie?
Sure.
Yeah. Let's
Are we doing a movie? Are we doing a movie?
Doing a movie.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, we are doing a movie, and I think I don't know. It's going to be an interesting conversation because I know our history with the Fast and Furious movies. We pretty much binge watched them over the last few months. And Will, I think you've kind of bookended them, right?
I've bookended them. Yeah, I watched number one in theaters. When did that come out? 2001.
Oh wow! So yeah, it's been several years since you've gone to see them.
It has been since the first Fast and Furious movie was out in theater since I've seen one of these movies. So,
Well, knowing your taste, what dragged you to the movies in 2001 to see Fast and Furious?
It looked. I mean, I remember the trailers.
Oh, you were. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the trailers being exciting enough for it, and I actually enjoyed it well enough. I liked the first one. I thought it was a fine film. But I then remember seeing the trailers for the second one and thinking, I think I've seen all of this that I want to see. I already saw what I wanted to see with the first one. So I'll be interested in talking a little bit about how Furious 7 then evolved off of that.
Indeed.
Where have we gone? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get to it then. Just, to kind of boilerplate this, we'll talk about it spoiler-free first, so that if you're on the fence about seeing it, you can get some of our advice on whether we think you should check it out, and then we'll give ample warning before we move into spoiler territory. But with those things said, here we go, our discussion of Furious 7. So, Jim, why don't you take the wonderful, wonderful, wonderful pleasure of telling us a little bit about what Furious 7's all about, and whether people should go see the movie in theaters, wait for rental, or skip it entirely.
I will take the pole position here.
Do it.
That's my favorite position.
Yeah. Oh, we're talking about racing.
Yeah. Different pole.
So what we've got here with Furious 7 is we've basically got the next Fast and Furious episode. Let me see, maybe the 7th, featuring the global exploits of our unstoppable crew and a seemingly unstoppable, hugely successful franchise that's built on cars, speed, and over-the-top adventures. This one's got Vin Diesel back as Dominic Toretto. It's got Paul Walker. It's got the departed Paul Walker, the late Paul Walker. Also, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, is back leading the cast in this movie. This movie is directed by James Wan, and he's a newcomer to the Fast and Furious franchise. We know James Wan from the Saw movies, the Insidious 1 and 2, The Conjuring. He's got a really strong background and experience in horror movies, moving over to really a totally different genre. And then, the previous movies, I don't know about all of them, but I know a lot of them were directed by Justin Lin, who's been now tapped to do the new Star Wars 3 movie. So he's moving on to a kind of a different genre also.
Star Trek 3.
Did I say Star Wars?
You said Star Wars.
Ah, that's what we get for talking about freaking Wookiees and Gungans before. Sorry, Star Trek, of course. Star Trek 3, which we'll see Justin Lin directing, which I'm also excited for. I think that's in 2016 as well. Yeah. So this one also has coming back Michelle Rodriguez, Tyrese Gibson, Ludacris, Tony Jaa from The Raid Redemption is in this movie. It's got this one's even got Kurt Russell. It's got Jason Statham as Deckard Shaw, who is a character that's come back. I don't think it's any spoiler that he's the bad guy seeking revenge against Dom Toretto and his family for what happened in previous movies. We should probably say, Brad, that when we do get into spoilers, we may be spoiling other movies.
Well, I think it stands to reason.
Yeah.
We're going to spoil any and all Fast and Furious movage.
So that's what we've got. I'm kind of a latecomer to the franchise, as Brad mentioned. We didn't even really get into the series until late last year and this year. When 7 was announced, we said, oh, man, this thing's going to be big. We saw how big 6 was.
Right.
Fast 6 was hugely successful, and the buzz around it was pretty good, that it was a really good movie. And I'm like, a car, adventure, racing, crime movie is good. I got to check this out. So we started watching at the beginning, and I don't know, not super impressed with the first couple movies. I liked the first one kind of. I liked the car culture vibe that it had to it, and we'll get into whether that still exists in these later movies or not as much. But I mean, we started watching them all in order, and I think we just finished Furious 6 or Fast 6 the night or two before we went to see Furious 7. The night before. So it was fresh in our minds. So we were kind of super amped up to see this one. I mean, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I don't know if I would say it's my favorite of the franchise. But I think I think it's going to be massively successful. We saw the numbers come back this weekend. It was like crazy numbers that it brought in, like $150 million weekend or something like that. I did have a lot of fun with this movie. I've developed, I think, a soft spot for this whole franchise and watching them from 1 to 2, 3, 4, 5. Like, call me or equate me with the Marvel fanboys, kind of. I kind of like watching this series. I look forward to seeing these characters come back, seeing what they do with these characters. I liked it. I mean, it was. We'll talk about the plot a little bit. I think that's probably where most of the weakness of this film lies. But what it lacks in plot, I think it makes up for in some pretty awesome action set pieces. That we'll get into when we talk about what actually happens in the movie. I saw that this movie kind of went more from like action set piece to action set piece to action set piece with a very, I will say, two plot lines that I thought were both pretty weak and kind of ridiculous. But then again, I don't necessarily watch these movies at this point for a super strong plot. I'm going to see the characters. I'm going to see them put in situations. I'm going to see them race cars and action. So that's what we got with this movie. I liked it a lot. I would definitely recommend of course, I'm not going to probably sway anybody. If you're already a fan of this series, I think you're probably going to go see this regardless. I think it's kind of this thing is kind of a rolling wave of popularity at this point. It's like each movie seems to get successively more successful in terms of the box office. I don't know if I would say each movie successively gets better quality-wise and film-wise. We can argue about those points, but I don't think I'm going to sway anybody to like run out and see 7 or run out and start watching the series from number 1 and get to number 7. I don't think this is that kind of recommendation. I will say that if you enjoyed, let's say, any of the Fast and Furious movies, I would say this movie is definitely worth your money.
Awesome. All right. How about you, Will?
Yeah, so like we mentioned before, I bookended this one. I saw the first one like 14 years ago, whatever that was. Didn't care to come back to the series, and now we're doing this one for the show. Heard a little bit of positive feedback from it, and said, yeah, fuck it, I'll go in. And there's some problems with this movie. As Jim mentioned, there are some script problems. There are some performance issues as well. A couple of the performers do a really good job. A couple of them turn in really, really awful line readings. It's very all over the board. But the thing is if when you go to watch these movies, it doesn't matter if the script is good or not. It doesn't matter if the performances are good or not. These films are all about the performance set pieces. Or, I'm sorry, the action set pieces, and they are really, really, really solid. I enjoyed this movie. Again, it's hard to it's hard to recommend it for the same reasons that Jim mentioned, because the people that are probably already going to want to see this movie are probably already going to see this. But if you've dismissed this series because you're not just a car person, or you're just kind of thinking like, oh, another stupid action movie or whatever, I would say give this one a shot. It's certainly a far cry better than I think about a similar franchise. Big explosions and large action set pieces, like the Transformers movies. And if I put this movie up against any one of the Transformers movies, this one blows it out of the water far and away. This is a much better movie than any of those.
No, well, blows its doors off.
Just blows its doors off. Yeah, these cars don't need to transform; they just drive really fast. But yeah, I mean, I think Vin Diesel is one of those guys who he has a limited range, but his range is perfect for the role that he plays here. Just kind of the gruff, like, badass. I thought Jason Statham was he's one of those guys. He's always fairly compelling in movies to me, and I thought he made for a very compelling villain here. Dwayne Johnson and Kurt Russell are both actors who are really great at just chewing up scenery in the best way possible, and I enjoyed everything that they did on screen. Again, there's some weak spots. I'm not a Jordana Brewster fan, so anything with her, I didn't care much for any of the stuff with Tyrese's character, and maybe I would have more if I had watched. Big caveat here: I didn't watch films 2 through 6, so maybe I would have appreciated his character more if I had seen those. But every time he had like kind of a wacky line to give, I just kind of eye rolled and waited for the next person to just step in and do something else. But yeah, should you go see this movie? Yeah, I would say so. Fun action, lots of good action, maybe a little overlong in the end, but you want to see explosions, you want to see cars, you want to see crazy machine guns and helicopters and all sorts of crazy shit happening, this is the movie for you. So, yeah, go see it.
Yeah. I think it's a great warm-up for the summer blockbuster season. I mean, it's been a while since we've had a big blockbuster come our way that, since probably last summer maybe, or last fall. So, and we're just starting to get into now. We're going to get Mad Max. We're going to get, I don't know. Do we have the Avengers 2 coming? Yeah. So I think this is a really good warm up to getting into some of the other blockbusters. And we'll see. I mean, like I said, this is a popcorn movie to beat. This was made as a popcorn series, basically, and some people have described it. And we were listening to another podcast, and we'll give them a small plug here. It was the Slash Filmcast, and they were saying this is basically Avengers for meatheads. I mean, that's what this kind of movie is. Like Avengers is a comic book superhero movie for nerds, and this is kind of a comic. Superhero maybe not, but hero movie for the car set for meatheads. Yeah, it's very similar action beats, very similar MacGuffin-driven plots. It's I mean, you could basically put this up against, I think, a Marvel movie and see a lot of similarities.
That's the evolving state of the action movie in general. If you think back to the 80s, it was just the stories were more based around who your leading man was. This is a Bruce Willis vehicle. This is a Sylvester Stallone film. This is Arnold. And all you pretty much had to do was just say, okay, Arnold is fighting Russians on a boat. Let's write that movie. It's basically like Mad Libs. So, but nowadays you have films that have our action films, at least the ones that tend to be successful, the ones that we tend to talk about, follow these. They tend to have more of an evolved world. Maybe the superhero side of things. Or here, I definitely see a lot of that. I see a lot of that of evolution of the modern action film here, where we have all of these characters who've played. Again, coming into this not having seen 2 through 6, but I could tell that a lot of these characters played these different roles through these different films, some like of great importance, maybe some they were more of a cameo, but you got to see them all kind of come together here and do this like master team of things. And I thought that was exciting, and probably even more exciting if you'd been someone who had followed the entire franchise all the way through.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Brad, what did you think?
Hey, I'm still on the podcast? Really?
Yeah, we're not meaning to ignore you.
That's all right.
Don't get bent out of shape.
Well, generally we do general discussion after we've all shared our thoughts.
Yes.
That's okay. I know we're super excited. We're super excited to talk about these movies. So, yeah, I mean, for me, I agree with where you guys are coming from in part. I did enjoy this movie overall, although I would say the series as a whole is pretty fucking terrible. It's just not in my wheelhouse, so to speak. I really hated the first movie. Second movie was a disaster. I actually really liked Tokyo Drift, which surprised me, but I guess most people hate Tokyo Drift, so I don't know. I just something about the Lucas Black character was more compelling to me than like the Paul Walker or Vin Diesel character, and I don't know. I really dug it. And then 4 and 5, just again like cookie cutter bullshit. We watched 6 the other day, and actually 6 was decent. I was very surprised. 6 actually made me like put down the iPad, put down the 3DS, and like watch the movie. And I think a lot of that has to do with The Rock is a big part of it. I do like Dwayne Johnson quite a bit, and I've liked seeing him get more and more to work with in these movies. Some of the action stuff was pretty cool in 6. I really liked the sequence at the end with the plane and trying to weigh the play down and keep it from taking off. But I think for me, sort of the only reason I was wanting to get through these is what spawned this all for us was Paul Walker dying. We had heard that 6 was popular, people liked it, but then not too long after he passed away. And so then it was like, well, we haven't really seen any of these movies. Like we don't understand the Paul Walker impact, so to speak. And so we started going through them. And I liked some of what they were doing with the Paul Walker Vin Diesel character relationship in the 6th movie. And so going into this one, the big question in my mind is how are they going to handle it, right? The actor died partway through filming of this movie. We had heard that like his brother had stepped in to film some scenes. They were going to do some CGI stuff with him, which thinking back to like when the mom character, spoiler alert for Sopranos, when the mom character passed away, they like CGI'd her face and did some weird things with her voice. So I'm just having like nightmares of what they're going to do with like Robo Paul Walker. But I'll tell you what, for anyone who hasn't seen this movie yet, if I didn't know that Paul Walker had passed away, I don't think I would have had any idea that any of that stuff had happened. I would have thought it was just him in this movie. I think they did a phenomenal job. However they did it. I've been reading a little bit. Our friend of the show Felipe had given us some articles talking about like some of what that looked like behind the scenes, who filmed what and how they did it. And I think it was masterfully done. I really didn't notice the seams, so to speak. And I felt like they handled the Paul Walker thing in a way that felt sincere without being like overly maudlin or like, hey, let's take advantage of like our main star's death, which I was afraid was going to happen. And we'll talk more about some of this stuff in spoilers, I would say, but I would say overall this movie was actually pretty good. I was surprised by how much I was not tempted to like pick up my phone in a movie theater. I'm like, this is going to be the one movie that I'm going to see in a theater where I'm like, man, I wish that I was that dude 3 rows down, like Facebooking right now. But I didn't really have that urge once. I enjoyed it quite a bit. Could have had a little more rock in it for my tastes. But I would say, overall, it's definitely worth a watch. I would say if you haven't really seen the movies in this series, though, there's probably not a lot of emotional hooks for you to latch onto with these characters. Well, you were kind of talking about like some of the other characters, and you didn't necessarily care about them, or you didn't find what was going on with them interesting. I agree with you. I think a lot of that comes from previous movies, especially the stuff with the Michelle Rodriguez character. She's kind of a central plot point in several of the movies, and her character dies, and then her character comes back, but I don't want to spoil you too much in case you ever go back, but there's a lot of heart stuff there between her and like the Vin Diesel character that I found really rewarding for me. So overall, this is definitely a check out, but I would say the other movies make me want to check out. Jim, I think it's interesting that you've developed such a soft spot for them. This doesn't, these kinds of movies aren't typically what you tend to go for. So I think it's awesome that they've had that. That kind of impact on you, and I'm glad you enjoyed them so much, kind of in the lead up. But I'm glad that we saw this. I'm glad we saw it with friends and people in the theater who were super pumped to see it. I don't know if I would have been as engaged though if I saw it on Blu-ray or something. I don't think it would have been the same impact. Seeing it in the theater on a giant screen with a huge sound system kind of forced me to be more engaged. But fun times.
Yeah, one thing that I will say is definitely to this film's credit is I think they knew that there were going to be more people coming out and seeing this one because of Paul Walker and his death and just kind of everything around that. I feel like the film did a good job of, even if I didn't have all of those emotional hooks from some of the previous films, I never felt like I was missing a plot point. Like, at no point did I feel like, oh, I just wish I knew who that guy was. I feel like they used context clues fairly well to set up, like, this guy is important because he's a friend of Dom's. Okay, that's all I need to know. I didn't necessarily need to see the third movie to see how they were friends, but I could still see the setup, see the relationship, see how that played out, and see what they got from it. So at no point did I ever feel like, who the hell is this guy, and why did he just hand him that thing? So I guess from a plotting perspective, that for 7 films deep in a franchise, I'd say that's a plus.
Yeah, there's not too much intricate character stuff that goes on. I think Brad mentioned the Michelle Rodriguez Letty character. There's some stuff that goes on in the previous movies with regards to her that I think is very compelling and adds a layer of emotional depth to all of the movies, including 6 and 7, that deal with her. With her character arc, I guess. Same thing with The Rock. I mean, he's not even in the first 3 movies or 4 movies? I forget when he appeared. I think he appeared in the 5th movie first.
I think so. Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, you're right, Will. You're not going to be lost if you pick up on this movie, but I think you might miss out a little bit on some of the emotional depth and some of the richness of the, not the plot, because the plot of this movie, again, we'll get into it, I think is kind of dumb, but just the character development that we have here at the 7th movie. And yeah, like I said, I mean, I have developed a soft spot. I'll be looking forward to the next movie when it comes out.
Yeah, and they're already working on Fast Furious 8, right? That's what we're hearing.
Whatever it's going to be called.
It's already moving forward. I guess it wasn't one last ride after all, right? So
they've got another one last ride.
I think that might have been just for that car. I don't know.
No.
Yeah. Well, this was the farewell to the
Paul Walker.
Paul Walker and all that.
Right.
So.
Right. Well, are you guys ready to move on to Spoiler Town?
Sure.
Sure. Are we going to be using those spoilers to hang off of, in case of daring do?
I think we totally are. Like, your car is going to drift over the edge, and I'm going to jump for the spoiler and grab it, and then the spoiler is going to break off, and I'm going to fall down the cliff and die. The way Jim's looking at me right now, that's probably what he wants me to do, right?
What do you mean?
You've got these evil eye daggers.
I'm looking at my camera for a change instead.
Is that what it is?
Okay. Yeah.
I'm talking, and you're just like.
So what we've learned right now, Jim, is that it's apparently it unsettles Brad when you stare directly at your camera.
I'm looking into your God's eye.
All right. So before we say any more, spoilers for Furious 7 are totally in effect. If you do not want to be spoiled, now is your chance. If you're listening live to just step away for 15 minutes or so, come back for plugs. If you are listening in digital tape delay, refer to our time index. Go ahead and skip ahead appropriately. Do not skip to the very end of the show just to see if we have a stinger. Listen to our plugs because we have cool other stuff to talk about afterward. But let's get right to it. Let's talk about the Paul Walker slash brother stand-in slash CGI stuff. So,
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that it was like other actors with like a CGI face slapped on, or like did it stand out to you at all?
There were a couple of spots where it did, but it wasn't because it was like really atrocious. It was more because you kind of knew to look for it. You could see the seams. For example, the thing that I thought was the biggest standout for me in terms of like they didn't quite nail it was that we're in spoilers, that very, very final sequence where Vin Diesel is driving off and then Paul Walker, his brother, pulls up next to him in a car and looks over, and it's got Paul Walker's face CGI'd over him, and he says, hey, yeah, I forget what he says there, but that very last shot that you see of Paul Walker, to me, the face looked very distorted and awkward, and that was, I think, the only time where it looked bad, like where the seams really showed. The rest of the things all throughout it, even if you could tell where there was a little bit of rubber banding, it was so well done that you didn't really notice it. I also noticed a few times where you could tell where they edited in things that were maybe slightly different scenes that they put together to make something that was a little bit more poignant because of his death.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like that when they're in the towers in Abu Dhabi, and they do that last little thing where he's like, hey, "Better you missed the bullets, right?" And then he shoots over to Paul Walker, just says something kind of like non-committal, like, "Oh yeah, I guess," or something like that. The background is like a little different than it had been before. They splice things together. This is all nitpicky stuff. Like I say, I noticed a couple of those because I was actively looking for it. I think if you knew nothing about it, or if you were just going in and just I just want to see what's on the screen, you would be none the wiser.
How about you, Jim?
Yeah, I think everybody who knew about Paul Walker's death was probably looking for it. And that's what I think is the astounding thing about the way they crafted this movie, right? As we mentioned early on, as Brad mentioned, Paul Walker died about halfway through the filming of the original, what was going to be Furious 7. And obviously when he died, that was a big deal, and they had to reassess. It's like, oh my God, what are we going to do? They could have called it quits on the series. They could have written the character completely out of the movie. They could have killed him off at some point in the movie. But I thought the path they took was brilliant. The way they handled it, I thought, was really classy. I thought it was just, surprised me, actually, how well the movie dealt with that death. I was fully expecting that there was going to be a death scene in the movie, that he would be killed in one of these major action set pieces, and that they would try to leverage off that for an emotional beat or oh my God, he's dying, whatever kind of scene. But they totally subverted that expectation of mine, and I think that was a wonderful thing. And everybody, I think, was looking for those seams of, okay, is that really Paul Walker, or is that Paul, another actor with a digital face, or was it, another actor standing in? Even actively looking at certain points for those things, I really could not tell. There was one scene at the beginning. It was a throwaway scene where he's talking to his wife about possibly going out on the road with the crew. And there was they do this in movies all the time and TV, where they show a shot of the wife's face when he's talking to her, but all you can see is the back of his head.
Right.
That could have been another actor. But again, they do that a lot in movies and TV. It's a typical blocking setup when two people are having a conversation. But otherwise, I thought it was like super seamless. I mean, it was funny because they got to the end of the movie, they defeated the bad guy and all the bad guys. Deckard Shaw and the other dude and the God's Eye and all that stuff. And then they're on the beach. It's kind of, you can tell, you can sense they're wrapping up the movie. I'm like, what the fuck's gonna happen? He's playing with his kid near the ocean. I'm like, what the fuck, is he gonna drown, or is it gonna be like a shark that jumps out of the water and freaking eats him or something? Because
Oh my God!
I was fully expecting him to like die on screen.
Well, here's the thing. I guess they made an announcement, and I missed it because I try to avoid reading a lot of stuff, like going in. But I guess they made an announcement that they weren't going to kill the character off in the movie. So a lot of people knew going in there wasn't going to be like a heroic death scene.
Okay.
But I didn't know that. So every time Paul Walker's character is in like mortal peril, I'm like, this is it. This is where he's going to die. It's going to happen right now. And then it didn't happen. And then like after 8 or 9 times of this, it's the end of the movie. I'm right there with you, Jim. I'm like, what's going to happen now? Like, is he going to drown or something? Like, how are they going to handle this? And then like he lived, and I'm like really confused. I'm like, wait, what? Huh?
He's gonna crash the soccer mom minivan or something, you know?
What's interesting about this ending is that so by doing this, by instead of killing him off, by having him basically retire, like that's his ending. He's retiring from the biz to do family stuff. It feels like this then impacts Jordana Brewster's future with the series, right? Like, you can't have her doing a bunch of things like, is Brian going to be okay on this next mission when Brian's out of the mission? So I read an interview with her where she was like talking a little bit about the 8th one and just like, I guess we'll see if I'm coming back or not. And I think that was more like I'm probably not coming back.
I think it depends. If you remember, she used to drive. Well, actually, you probably wouldn't. Well, maybe you would from the first movie.
The first one, I don't even remember. I remember her as the waitress and the little sister.
Wow. My thinking, and I mean, she's Vin Diesel's character's like sister, right? So I mean, he could like call her on the phone, and she could be like, "Oh, Brian's off playing with so and so," and he could have a heartfelt conversation with her. "Oh, I really miss Brian," like. They could find ways to bring her back, and she can. I mean, she's always the one that's in mortal peril. Like in the last, 4 movies, like they always have to fucking save her because someone's taking her fucking hostage. That can still happen. You know what I mean? So I'm sure if she wants to be part of it, they'll find ways to make it happen.
So I mean, with him quote retired and her possibly still in the movies, it's probably not a huge stretch to say that they could actually refer to his character as totally being alive in another movie. Even if they don't feature him, he could be in a scene. He could, they could show him briefly in a scene.
Get the brothers back.
Well, just not even, just a throwaway scene where he's in the background in the yard playing with the kids, and she's on the phone talking to Dom. Because that's his sister, right?
Right.
So, I mean, they could do something like that. It would be a nice little touch, a nice little homage without being too, bringing them fully back. But
right.
I guess the ending, with that montage and that kind of race between Dom and him. I mean, it was touching. It was nice. It was a little bit melodramatic for me. I know a lot of people in the theater welled up at that moment. People that have a big emotional attachment to the characters, I'm sure it kind of got a lot of people in the theater choked up. I'm sure.
It was the popcorn dust, actually.
Was it popcorn dust?
Popcorn dust.
Popcorn dust.
It really is.
Popcorn dust. Yeah.
But I mean, if you were watching this movie, and if you watch this movie from beginning to just before that end scene where they said for Paul, you got to wonder which character you and somebody told you that, wow, one of these actors actually died halfway through filming. Which character would you say it would be?
Yeah, well, obvious.
I would have said it would be The Rock, because he disappeared for
2/3 of the movie.
Yeah. The middle 2/3 of the movie. He was totally gone.
I probably would have pegged it as the Paul Walker character, just because all of he had so many scenes that were very much and part of it was just because it worked with the story I guess they were originally trying to tell, and part of it was you could tell that they kind of merged a few things later on to tell this, but they kept doing a lot of stories, little lines or little dialogues about just got to do this one last thing, or I don't know if I'm going to get in or out of this, or hey, just like, family is the most important thing. Would you agree, Brian? Just like they had a bunch of these little lines throughout the course of the movie that were very much poignant, less so because of what was happening in the movie itself and more because of the meta context.
Yeah, you're right. There were a few kind of overt, more subtle references to something going on that, But again, that could have been in reference to him retiring, I guess, or whatever, or bowing out. Yeah. At the end. Do we want to get into a little bit about some of the other stuff going on in this movie? Like I mentioned that the plot, and actually that I think there were two plots that were kind of intertwined but were fairly weak in this story. I mean, they basically kept the movie going from action set piece to action set piece, but that's about it. I mean, you had like we see in every movie now, the MacGuffin of the piece of technology that's going to bring the world to its knees if it gets in the wrong hands, right? We had that in this movie with something called God's Eye that can tap into the vast network and pick up and pinpoint you anywhere in the world based on where you're holding your cell phone and whether the microphone's picking up your voice and blah, 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 blah.
And it was created by Missandei from Game of Thrones, don't forget.
Yeah, that's right. She programmed that whole thing. But that whole thing was there just so we could have chase scenes. And then you had this whole thing that was really a carryover, and Will, I'm sorry, we might spoil a little bit of 6 here for you.
I'm probably not going back and rewatch
Okay.
it.
Actually, 6 is probably... Now, in my view, it's probably the best of the movies. But in 6, the main big bad is Deckard's brother, Owen Shaw, who we see briefly in the hospital at the beginning of this movie.
Right?
Yeah, in the opening credit scene, which was kind of dumb. He has to kill everybody in the hospital just to visit his brother on the hospital bed. But that whole scene with Deckard Shaw, like, showing up everywhere just to fuck things up. Like, the whole point of going on this mission and recovering God's Eye was so that Kurt Russell would turn over the whereabouts of Deckard Shaw to Dominic, right? I think that was the whole thing, right? I'll give you Shaw if you give me God's Eye. Well, Shaw was showing up everywhere anyway. Like it wasn't like they had to go find the dude. He was there, like every scene. So it was just kind of ridiculous. They could have not had as much Deckard Shaw in the movie until the end, maybe. Mm-hmm. I did like the beginning scene, his introductory scene where he's in the office when The Rock comes in and like, what the fuck are you doing on my computer, boy? I'm gonna fuck you up. I actually liked the way that scene was set up, and it was like a what the fuck moment is going on here, and the fight that ensued I thought was pretty good. The fight scene in the office building I thought was good. But yeah, like I said, the plot, I mean, you don't, just like in these movies, just like in the Marvel movies, you don't think too much about the plot because they tend to have holes. They tend to have a lot of holes. This one was kind of half-baked.
Yeah, this one had a lot of holes. But again, it's kind of like, it doesn't matter. Like that's a hard thing to say from like a critique perspective. Like there's a huge problem with this one aspect of this movie, but it's hard to say that as someone that's critiquing it. But I think that is kind of like the plot just has to be solid enough where you can understand who's doing what in any given scene, so that you can understand why the action is important, and then you just give us some cool action.
Yeah. And that's the thing, I mean, that's really what these movies are, right? There are two tent poles to these films: crazy action and family, right? And
cool
cars.
And cool cars. I know.
Well, I fold that into the action because all the action, for the most part, revolves around driving and car stunts. So I mean, they really give us a healthy dollop of both, but I mean, the believability, right, is like not there at all. Like they're dropping these cars out of the back of a plane, and one parachute apparently is enough to lower like a 2-ton car to the ground safely. Not only that, but like 20 feet above the ground, like they eject their chute and then like fall down on their suspensions, and they're able to like do all these crazy stunts now, and like.
I was kind of hoping that Tyrese's character would die off there, just like he messed something up and then just like landed in a tree or something like that. Done. Yeah. I really didn't like that character.
Which one?
Roman, the Tyrese character. He was better in the other ones, apparently.
Yeah,
right?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I definitely like the Ludacris character a lot.
Yeah, he was good.
I like him a lot, and the two of them kind of pal around together. But yeah, I think that other character is kind of a throwaway. He's in there for more comedy relief, comedic relief. But I mean, you mentioned that part where they dropped the I thought that part when they were dropping the planes I'm dropping the cars from the plane at the beginning. I thought that was really well done. I'm like, how the fuck did they do this? Like especially when it showed kind of the in-car, some of the in-car shots. Like actually on the IMAX, actually gave you the sensation of like you're in a car tumbling, like hurtling toward the earth. It was pretty awesome, I thought, the way they did it. And then that whole chase scene with the bus in the mountains, I thought worked very well. I mean, probably for me, I think that was the highlight of all the action set pieces in the movie. I think that was probably the best one.
Yeah, I would say everything from the time they land after going out of the plane, all the way through the down the hill chase sequence.
The crash escape.
Yeah, I would say all the way through that was the highlight of the film for me, because I mean, of course you take any and all like suspension of disbelief. You know that you're gonna watch some ridiculous bullshit, but it's delightful ridiculous bullshit, and it was nice seeing just how everything was blocked, everything was choreographed. Why this car is moving here and why it's moving there at that particular time. It was exciting. It was thrilling.
I just wish their cars had cool, like, weapons built into them, like James Bond cars. Like, I want to see missile launchers deploy from the sides and, like...
Well, you're going to see that in 8 Fast, 8 Furious.
Yeah. Well, they did get a little crazy in this movie, especially toward the end with the drone chasing them through tunnels and the stealth helicopter bullshit.
That was awful.
It's a little bit too much, I think. I wish they had reined that back a little bit. Like, they got a stealth, like, armored tactical helicopter chasing them through the streets of Los Angeles, launching fucking missiles at cars.
Right.
It's just a little bit too much.
I'm sorry, have you seen LA? Do you know how many fucking police copters they have flying around there? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, there's a helicopter flying around shooting missiles and blowing up cars? Gosh, I'm glad there are no police copters in LA to come check out what's going on.
A helicopter and a drone.
Oh my God, that was pretty awful. That was pretty bad. And the whole MacGuffin, like, I kind of hate that term. The whole like plot device thing, right? With this God's eye thing, it's all reliant on like facial recognition, and B, analyzing your voice as you pass by someone's cell phone. So if you shut the fuck up, put on a mask, it can never find you.
You'd think.
It's that easily defeatable, but oh no, this is super terrible, guys. We gotta...
Well, I mean, you're not going to wear a mask forever, though. Like, I'll say at least, like, that part, like, once they establish, like, what this thing can do, like, at some point it's going to find you, even if it doesn't find you. I think they even said something like, they made a reference to Osama bin Laden. It's like, okay, if we don't catch him now, we can catch him
agree.
in, like, a few hours.
I'm just saying, like, if you're trying to, like, get the drop on these guys, you know what I mean? Like, if you're trying to, like, sneak up on them or, you know, like play keep away with the girl, I realize there's some baiting there, right? But, I mean, like, if you need to get away from them for 20 seconds, put on a mask and, like, duck into an alley or something. I mean, it just seemed a little too easily foiled for what they were trying to do for me. But again, I guess it goes back to, like, this is a popcorn tentpole movie. This isn't like a deep thinking sort of, you know, thing. So.
For me, I had less of a problem with like the drones and the copters themselves in LA. I mean, it's over the top, but I mean, everything in this movie is over the top. I mean, The Rock. I mean, hell, The Rock, the character that I think we've all kind of mentioned, like, you know, we enjoyed seeing him the most. To get to see more of him, he basically shrugged off a broken arm by just snapping it out of a cast and making a couple crack noises, and he's fine. And I think about that, just like, you know, I get done at the gym, and like I have like 4 or 5 days of just like agony, and he's just like, oh, broken arm, time to go kick some ass. But that's all fine. I think the only problem I had with the ending sequence was that it felt overlong. Like I felt like all the different things that were being thrown at us. Towards the end, I was just like, well, let me get through this action sequence. I think I'm done with this action sequence because it's been going on long enough. That was my only problem. It felt like I was losing some of that edge of the seatness just because of how long it was.
It did feel a little overly long. Some of the stuff was a little drawn out, I think. One of the things I did like, though, and again, I know most people hate Tokyo Drift, but the timeline of these fucking movies confuses me so much. Thank God there's an infographic out there explaining it to me, because it's like 1, and then 2, and then 4, and then 5, and then 6, and then 3, which is Tokyo Drift, and then 7.
Yes.
And it's like, what the fuck? But the way that 6 ended, so 6 intersects with 3, which is Tokyo Drift, in that Deckard Shaw is the one who set up the car accident that killed Han. So this movie necessitated the scene in Tokyo Drift where we see Dom pull up next to Lucas Black, right? So I was glad in this movie to see Lucas Black in that scene. His character comes back. I know a lot of people hated his character. I loved him. And it was interesting that he got a little bit of a scene with with Dom. Although it's really funny because they show a clip from Tokyo Drift, right? And then like a second later, they zoom in on his face and he's like instantly 12 years older. And you can tell Lucas Black has put on some city miles since he did Tokyo Drift. Like it's like you could have made that a lot less obvious. Like,
so Tokyo Drift and 6, I think, happen concurrently until the end, right? And then they intersect.
Well, no, because in 6, like Han, at the end of 6, Han is like, oh, let's, I'm going to go to Tokyo. I've been talking about Tokyo all this time. I'm going to go. And so at the end of 6, he goes to Tokyo, and then
3 happens.
And then 3 happens. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So 3 is happening sort of in between 6 and 7, essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's confusing.
Yeah, but Will, you were talking about bad line delivery, and Lucas Black, unfortunately, just I think struggled a lot there. They didn't give him much to work with anyway, but it's total it was bad.
Yeah. I don't necessarily know about him in other things, but at least in this, all I could think of was like, geez, I do not want to see the movie that this guy was in because his line delivery was so awful here. I mean, he wasn't the only one. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of Jordana Brewster or Tyrese Gibson here, but when Lucas Black had those just couple of lines, it really didn't do anything for me. But who did, and I don't know that we've talked, I think we mentioned him briefly, but I think we should talk a bit about him, is Kurt Russell, who had a role as Mr. Nobody, the government official who kind of helped set a lot of the air quotes plot points in kind of kickstarts all of those. I thought Kurt Russell did a really good job with this. I think he played his role very over the top and hammy, and I think that's kind of what you have to do for a movie like this to be memorable. And I think I've even heard that they're planning on expanding his role in the 8th one. I think was one of the things I read in the interview. They're going to be doing more Kurt Russell stuff, and that's exciting for me. That in and of itself is enough for me to go like, I may go see Furious 8.
Yeah, Kurt Russell was very good. Of course, he's a veteran screen actor, and he knows what he's doing, and he knows how to command the audience's attention, and he does that in this movie, just similar to the way The Rock does. I mean, he just totally hams it up and plays that kind of over the top that over the top role really good. I mean, I really liked, when I saw Kurt Russell in the movie, I had almost forgotten that he was in this. I'm like, oh shit, it's Kurt Russell. This is going to be good. And I was kind of waiting for Kurt Russell's character to actually turn. At one point in the movie, I'm like, all right, he's gonna turn, and he's gonna double cross our heroes, and and then they're going to have to take him out too, you know. But that never happened. So yeah, there's definitely the possibility to have him back in 8, you know, play a part in 8, as well as you know, Deckard Shaw and Owen Shaw. I mean, those guys are still alive. They're still around, yeah.
Yep.
So,
yep.
Was anybody reminded of the Magneto character when they were locking up Deckard Shaw?
Yeah.
When they were bringing him into the jail cell, the special jail cell.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely reminded me of Magneto. The other thing. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
While we're on the topic, did you have something to say?
No, I was just going to say, look for him in X-Men Daytona: A Future Past coming out next year.
Yes, yeah, they're going to be a crossover between the two movies. Yeah, and there was one scene. It was in the last action set piece when Dominic launches his car at Deckard's car, and it was almost like the cars were having sex. Did you guys?
I did.
Did you guys have that thought at all?
I didn't.
I definitely did.
Yeah. It was like Dom's car's penis is bigger than.
Yeah. So Dom's car is the top, is what you're saying.
Dom is the top.
I just want to know why they couldn't fight shirtless in the rain. Would that be so much to ask?
Well, think about who the target audience is. The target audience isn't us. The target audience is the straight versions of us.
I know.
Yeah.
That's all right. I'll go home and watch The Fast and the Furious, and I'll be fine.
That last fight scene lasted forever. How long can two guys? There's no way. I mean, how long can two guys swing giant wrenches at each other?
How many lead pipes to the face can one man take?
without even bleeding?
With only getting a little bitty cut.
Oh, I've got slight battle damage. Yeah.
So, Will, I think what we're gonna do, and we should probably move on to plugs here in a second. But Jim had this awesome idea. What did you call Dom's little words of wisdom, Jim?
Torettoisms.
Torettoisms.
I posted a few on Facebook.
We're gonna put a book together with like pictures of him from the movies, with like captions of like his greatest quotes. And
like the one from this movie, he had 5 or 6 in this movie, but I can't remember them. If I had the thing on pay-per-view, I mean on VOD or Blu-ray, I'd pick them up. But the one I remember is toward the end, he says it to Deckard Shaw after he defeats him. He says that's the trouble with street fights. The street always wins.
And then the street cracks apart and swallows him whole.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Little on the nose there, but
that was an ongoing joke in the movie. It was an ongoing joke.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I sense we could probably get more discussion out of this, but I do think it's probably time to mosey along. Are you guys ready for some pluggage?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Okay, so this is the part where we tell you about other stuff we're excited about. Will, what have you got this week?
So it's been a weird week for me. Haven't watched as many movies that I can really talk about here. I've been doing a lot of I'm on the programming committee for a film festival coming up here in Austin. I've talked about it here on the show, the Austin Gay and Lesbian International Film Festival. So I've been watching a lot of the films that have been submitted for that, trying to help decide, what's going to get shown and what's not. So I haven't had a chance to watch a lot of other things. But then I remembered something I have watched, and this is a super deep cut. I imagine there's probably like one of our listeners who is going to be like, oh man, I want to watch this thing, and the rest are going to be like, whatever. But hey, it's a good time. So I'm a fan of like reality competition shows, like Survivor, Big Brother, the types of things where like people have to use social strategy to try to figure something out. And I got turned on to this South Korean show called The Genius. And it is probably the best of any of those types of shows I have ever seen. It is so fucking good. It's on YouTube. They have like 3 seasons of it. So if you like the types of shows where people have to use like social strategy to try to outmaneuver one another, someone gets eliminated and then someone moves forward, that type of thing, go to YouTube, just search for the Genius. They have subtitled versions of it. It is super compelling, super well done. Again, this is probably there's probably like one person listening who this appeals to, but if you're that one person, check it out.
Will, what sets it apart for you from some of the other kind of Survivor, Big Brother kind of shows that you watch?
So, Survivor and Big Brother are shows that I like because I enjoy the format of them. They're very, like, when you just look at, like, I'm a big board gamer and a big social game. I love games. And so the games for those two shows are really good, but what you, especially on Big Brother, is a lot of, like, manufactured drama that kind of detracts from what is otherwise a really, really good on paper game. The genius is, like, 13 super compelling, competent players all playing competently against one another. Sometimes they fuck up, sometimes they don't. But the drama comes from, like, the actual events that are happening, not this, like, manufactured, ramped up stuff. So it is basically all of the good things about those shows without any of the, like, without any of the, like, the real world or, like, the Real Housewives or any of that, like, influence hovering over it.
So they've got like subbed versions of it out there, is what you're saying, on YouTube.
Yeah, the entire series so far, which is like 3 seasons, it's all on YouTube. You can watch it. It's subtitled, and it's really, really good. And I think a lot of people, if you're not familiar with South Korean television, you might immediately think it's probably weird and wacky like Japanese game shows can be, and it's not. This feels like an American game show with a different language and without some of, like, the manufactured drama injected into it. Other than that, it feels very very comparable to something that we may have watched or talked about. So check it out.
Awesome. Very cool. Jim, what do you got?
Let's see. For fans of Breaking Bad, the show that a lot of us loved, we've been watching the first season of Better Call Saul, which is getting ready to wrap up, right?
Tonight was the finale.
Yeah, tonight was a finale. We didn't see it yet, so I'm not going to give any spoilers, but we watched the second to the last episode of the first season last night, I think. Yeah, really great show. I was kind of skeptical on how the show was going to be, how compelling can a show about kind of a side character from Breaking Bad be? But Bob Odenkirk is fantastic in this. Who's the uncle, the brother character? Michael McKean. It's good to see him getting a regular shot at a good dramatic role. This show is really offbeat. It's definitely got a lighter feel than Breaking Bad does, at least so far. But it also has, it's got some of the same characters. Of course, it's got Mike Ehrmantraut, who we love to see, and he's getting more of a role. This show is really coming into its own for me, and I'm really enjoying it. It's an AMC show. Go check it out if you haven't already. It's still early enough in the series that if you want to get on board, you've only got maybe, I don't know, Brad, 8 or 9 episodes?
Yeah, I think this was the 8th episode, and the cool thing is that even though it's a Breaking Bad spinoff, it all takes place before Breaking Bad, so you don't need to know anything about Breaking Bad to enjoy this show.
Right. It's definitely a standalone show, but I think there's something a little extra to get out of it if you've seen Breaking Bad, because some of the characters do go on into the Breaking Bad world. Check it out. It's called Better Call Saul.
Nice. Good pick. I'm going to take a TV pick, too. I know it's a movie podcast, but we have lots of crossover with our sister show, MBP TV, and we plug movies on there all the time, so we'll plug TV here. Game of Motherfucking Thrones is coming back on Sunday. So I am super, super pumped for that. Can't wait to see what's going on, especially after seeing, Game of Thrones characters / actors in Furious 7. It got me kind of hyped up for what's coming. Big season for Game of Thrones. They're going to kind of run out of book here apparently this season, and they're going off the page, so to speak. So can't wait to see what happens with that. But it returns Sunday evening, so be sure if you're a Game of Thrones fan, set your DVR, check it out in HBO Go.
Poor old George R.R. Martin cannot keep up. Right?
Oh wow. Anyway, guys, this was a fun show. Have a great one, everyone. I don't know what we're going to do next week because Ex Machina is not in wide release yet, so can't do that. I certainly am not going to review The Longest Fucking Ride. We talked about doing horror movies last week. I don't know if that's something we want to revisit. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, Pretty Woman. I don't know. We can talk about it.
Horror movies.
Horror movies. For whores. For whores. Anyway,
the whores.
We'll figure it out, and we'll see you all next week. Have a good one, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.